Imagine standing in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, thousands of kilometers from any continent, surrounded by nearly 1,000 giant stone faces staring at you in silence. Welcome to Rapa Nui. Welcome to Easter Island. And welcome to Learn English with Mr. Ben. Today, we are going on a journey, not just to one of the most remote and mysterious places on Earth, but deep into the English language itself. By the end of this lesson, you will know 5 powerful vocabulary words that educated English speakers use every day. Words you can use at work, in conversation, and in writing. And here is the secret nobody tells you. The story of Easter Island is not just about giant statues. It is about a civilization that achieved the impossible. And then vanished. Almost without a trace.
Mr. Ben, that sounds incredible. I had no idea Easter Island had such a mysterious history. Where exactly is it?
Easter Island, or Rapa Nui as the local people call it, is one of the most remote inhabited places on the entire planet. And that is our first vocabulary word today. Remote. R-E-M-O-T-E. Remote. Remote means far away from other places, people, or civilization. Rapa Nui sits in the South Pacific Ocean, 3,700 kilometers from the coast of Chile, 4,200 kilometers from Tahiti. The nearest populated island is over 2,000 kilometers away. To put that in perspective, if you stood on Easter Island and screamed, nobody would hear you. That is remote.
So remote means physically far from everything.
Yes, and you can also use it in everyday conversation. For example, there is not even a remote chance I am missing that flight. Here, remote means very small or unlikely. 2 powerful uses, 1 word. Write it down. Now, let us talk about why Rapa Nui is truly extraordinary. Because it is not just the location that makes this place special. It is what the people who lived here created against all logic, against all expectation. Nearly 1,000 Moai statues, some weighing 80 tons, the tallest standing over 10 meters high. Built by a civilization with no metal tools, no wheels, no cranes. How did they do it?
Honestly, I have no idea. It seems impossible. Who were these people?
That question brings us to our second vocabulary word, civilization. C-I-V-I-L-I-S-A-T-I-O-N. Civilization. A civilization is a complex human society with its own culture, government, art, and way of life. The Rapa Nui civilization developed entirely in isolation, no contact with the outside world for centuries. Yet they created one of the most astonishing architectural achievements in human history.
So, civilization means more than just a country? It means a whole society with its own identity?
Exactly. You can say ancient civilization, like the Egyptians or the Romans. You can say a civilization flourished, meaning it grew and thrived. Or you can say a civilization collapsed, meaning it fell apart suddenly. And that word, collapsed, is at the heart of the darkest secret of Easter Island. Because something terrible happened here. Something that scientists and historians are still debating today.
What happened to them?
That is exactly what we are going to uncover right now in the next part of our lesson. Stay with us. For centuries, nobody could explain what happened to the people of Rapa Nui, a civilization that built nearly 1,000 giant statues simply disappeared. But recent research has uncovered a truth that is even more surprising than the mystery itself. And it gives us our third vocabulary word today. Collapse. C-O-L-L-A-P-S-E.
collapse. To collapse means to fall down suddenly and completely. A building can collapse, a business can collapse, and tragically, a civilization can collapse. For a long time, scientists believed the Rapa Nui people destroyed their own island. They cut down every single tree. They used the wood to move the Moai statues. And without trees, the soil eroded, the crops failed, and the population collapsed from around 15,000 people to just a few hundred.
That is heartbreaking. They essentially destroyed their own home without realizing it? That was the theory. And for decades, it was taught in schools around the world as a warning, a cautionary tale about what happens when humans consume more than nature can provide. But here is where the story gets even more interesting. Because new research suggests that story may not be entirely true. Wait, so everything we thought we knew about Easter Island could be wrong? Exactly. And that is what makes Rapa Nui one of the most debated mysteries in modern archaeology. Some scientists now believe the Rapa Nui people were actually incredibly resourceful, that they adapted, that it was not their own actions that destroyed them, but outside forces. And those outside forces changed everything.
In the 1700s, European ships began arriving on the shores of Rapa Nui, and with them, they brought something far more destructive than anything the island had ever seen: disease, slavery, and the complete destruction of a culture. This brings us to our fourth vocabulary word: devastate. D-E-V-A-S-T-A-T-E. Devastate. To devastate means to cause severe and widespread destruction, physically or emotionally. The arrival of European colonizers devastated the Rapa Nui population. Thousands were taken as slaves to work in Peru. Disease wiped out those who remained. By 1877, the entire Rapa Nui population had been reduced to just 111 people. 111 people. From a civilization of thousands.
That is absolutely devastating. I had no idea that was part of the story of Easter Island. Nobody talks about that.
And that is exactly why this story matters. Because behind every mystery, there is a human truth that deserves to be told. You can use devastate in many ways. A storm can devastate a city. Losing a loved one can devastate a family. Or you can say, I was devastated to hear that news.
The Rapa Nui people survived centuries of isolation, collapse, and devastation. And yet, here is what truly astonishes historians and travelers who visit this island today. The Moai are still standing. Not all of them. Many were toppled during periods of conflict. But thanks to decades of careful restoration, these silent giants are rising again. And that brings us to our fifth and final vocabulary word today: preserve. P-R-E-S-E-R-V-E. Preserve. To preserve means to protect something and keep it in its original condition, preventing it from being damaged, destroyed, or lost. Rapa Nui National Park was created specifically to preserve the Moai statues and the culture of the Rapa Nui people. In 1995, it was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, one of the most important cultural preservation sites on the entire planet.
So, preserve is used when we want to protect something valuable from disappearing?
Exactly. You can preserve food to stop it spoiling. You can preserve a building to protect its history. You can preserve a language to keep it alive for future generations. And on a personal level, you can say, I want to preserve this memory forever.
That is beautiful. And it feels so connected to this story, because the Rapa Nui people are actively preserving their own culture and identity today.
You said that perfectly, Sara.
because that is exactly what is happening. The descendants of those 111 survivors now number over 9,000 people. Their language, Rapa Nui, is being taught in schools again. Their traditions are being celebrated. Their ancestors, those silent giants, are being restored one by one. A civilization that the world once wrote off as destroyed preserved itself against all odds.
Before we finish today, let us bring all 5 of our vocabulary words together. Because the story of Rapa Nui teaches us every single one of them. Rapa Nui is one of the most remote places on Earth, thousands of kilometers from any other civilization. The civilization that built the Moai achieved something the modern world still cannot fully explain. Their society began to collapse. But the real story of why is far more complex than history first told us. European arrival devastated the population, reducing thousands of people to just 111 survivors. And yet, their culture, their language, their identity was preserved against every odd. 5 words, one extraordinary story. And now, they are yours.
Mr. Ben, I came here to learn English today. And I also learned something that genuinely moved me. I never knew this story. And I will never forget it.
That is exactly why we do this, Sara. Because the best way to learn a language is to fall in love with the stories it tells. Now, I have a question for you, and I want you to answer in the comments below.
If you could visit any remote place on Earth, where would you go and why? Write in English. Our whole classroom is waiting to read it.
If today's lesson gave you something, a new word, a new story, or just a good feeling, please share it with someone. That is how our classroom grows.
Thank you for learning with us today. I am Mr. Ben, and this is your English classroom. We will see you in the next lesson.